today we are going to begin Access. And once we complete this chapter, and this is Access Chapter 1, you should be able to navigate among the objects in an Access database, understand the difference between working in storage and memory, practice good database file management, backup, compact, and repair Access files, create filters, sort table data on one or more fields, know when to use Access or Excel to manage data, use the relationship window, and understand relational power. So this is Introduction to Access, and you need to go out where you have your files saved. For some reason, if you lost it or if you forgot your flash drive, then you can go back out to D2L and download Access. Make sure you extract, and it doesn't have a zipper on it. So make sure the files are extracted, and we're going to start with Access Chapter 1, and we are going to open Traders. And this will be hands-on exercises, and it's hands-on exercises 1, and it starts on page 543. Make sure the first thing you do is enable your content. And I know you're not as familiar with Access, so I'm just going to give you a couple little tips before we start. Just some tips to see that might help you get used to Access. The first thing is what you determine for what you're going to open is here where it says your all access objects, and you have tables, queries, forms, reports. We won't be working with macros or modules, but we will be with tables, queries, forms, and reports. You'll see that the tables, the little icons on the tables looks like a spreadsheet. The forms look like a little form. Queries looks like a double spreadsheet. And on the reports looks like a little notebook. So these icons depend on what your information will do for you. Everything involved in this particular database is all part of the HO1 Traders database. So all of these parts are associated with this one database. And when you go in, Access is a little bit different than Word or Excel or PowerPoint in that the ribbon tools, they do have some of the same tools like all the other Microsoft programs, but there are several that are going to be completely different. So they will not be associated with any other program. Also, your undo button is not going to work as well. It'll work maybe 2 steps when you're doing activities, but then it will not work past that. Access automatically saves your information, so you don't have to go back and save constantly, but at the same time, you can't undo and redo like you were used to doing in Excel. We are going to go in, and I just wanted you to see a few things before we started, but I'm going to close this out because as we go through Access, also it's going to be saved a little bit different. When you go in, I want you to remember the easiest way to keep your work together would be making new folders. So if you want to say Access Chapter 1, or whatever you want to name it, just so it will be easier for you. Now this will be a backup to refer back to if you have any problems, because you're going to add your name to make it a new file. So I'm going to open Traders again. I just want to show you how to access the file. We're going to File, we're going to save database as. I'm going to go back to the flash drive where I have it saved, CPT 170, Access Chapter 1, and access chapter 1. You don't have to have that many folders. Whatever's easiest for you to find. But you need to, like you have in all the other ones, add an underscore and put your last name and your first name. So this will be hands-on 1. Also remember, I want all the files once you've completed the chapter. You can save them and submit them each time at the end of the hands-on 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Or you can wait to the end and upload them all at the same time. But every time you have to change that name from H1 to H2 to H3, so on and so forth, then that means that is a file you need to submit. I do not need the original file before you change the name. I just need each file that you have done work in. Now, like before, make sure enable content. If you forget to enable content, this can be a problem that when you go back, you could lose some information. So I'm going to click enable content and we're going to start working. Again, remember, you will have the toolbar here, and this is just the way you access your information. And when you go with tables and related views, that's why I especially want you to be careful of the icons because they're not separated per type any longer. So the spreadsheet represents the customers. Then the double spreadsheet would be a query. The little thing that looks like a form is a form, of course. And the report looks like a little notebook. So anytime you're confused, you can go back and refer to the icons to tell you which one does what operations. And we're going to go over that in more detail as we go through the chapter. Now, as we go through again, we started on file 43. We've already opened our database. We've already renamed it. You're going to go in again once you put your last name and your first name, enable content, and now we're going to start working with access. The first thing we're going to learn how to do is edit a record. Make sure, again, with access, you take your time. You follow the directions because you don't have an undo button. You don't have the advantage as you did before with Excel. If you make a mistake, you'll have to go back to the last file you were working with, whether it be the one you just downloaded, or if it's hands-on 3, then you could refer back to hands-on 2 where you stopped. But be very careful, go slow, take your time, and read your instructions carefully. Now we're going to learn how to edit a record. You're going to click the tables group in the navigation pane. This is your navigation pane. Now your tables group, what I had it set for before, I had it by categories. And you can see the tables, sales, product sales. There's many different ways then you can go in. Let's go back to all tables. And you can see how your information is set up. So we're going to go into the tables group to expand the list of available tables. We're going to double click the employees table. And the way I have it set up right now, you can see employees, but make sure you do the employees table. So go double click and open the employees table. You'll notice that it looks a lot like Excel with the spreadsheets. Now when you see a plus sign, that means there is more information in a subfolder. So each time it's another section that you can go in. So here's another level, but we'll talk more about that later on. So we have opened up our table, and it's called employees, which is one table in the overall database. We're going to click on the last name field. You see last name, and you are going to double click Peacock. So I'll go double click Peacock, and that selects the whole name. So once you type over this Peacock will disappear and whatever you type will go in. So if I type Cooper, and that's my last name. The next thing you're going to do, you can either click in Margaret, or if you just typed in Cooper, you can use your arrow keys to arrow over, or you can tab over. When you enter, it'll also go over. So whichever is more comfortable for you, then you can use to go to the next cell. So I'm going to go to Margaret, and I'm going to change Margaret with my first name. Now press tab to move to the next field in the fourth row. So now it says you have made changes in 2 fields in the same record. It says note the pencil. Here's the pencil, and that means you're doing editing inside your access table. So anytime you're working and editing, you will see a little pencil that'll come up, and it's highlighted in orange. You'll also notice, like Excel, whatever cell you're working in, it'll highlight in orange. So we're going to go on back through, and this tells you, and I know that you love when the book asks you to do this, to undo. Now you've got Margaret, and you're setting up. This is going to be an example of how many steps you can undo. As you can see, the undo is no longer available. You could undo 1 step, and now anything that you had done prior is already saved, and you can't undo. So make sure, if it did undo for you, go back and type your name again. So instead of Margaret Peacock, you should now have your name in the 4th record. We're going to go in, it says click anywhere in the 3rd row where Janet Levering's record is stored. So you see Janet. It says the pencil symbol disappears, indicating your changes have been saved. So once the pencil's gone, your information has been saved. You're no longer editing. We're going to click the address in the 1st record, the one for Nancy. So we're going to click the address, and we are going to type 404 East Morningside Drive. That is on page 545, and it's letter H. So we've got the address, and we're going to change that address to 4004 East Morningside Drive. And if it tells you to put a period, make sure you put a period. Same as the other one, you've got to spell exactly correctly. You'll see that I said Morningside. Well, if you were in the test, that would not be right. So make sure you look at your work, and if there's any problems with it, you make changes. So again, we're going to enter, and the book's just telling you what you can undo and redo, and only go again 1 step. So now it's gone back with Margaret Peacock. She's still set, and the address has gone back to what it was before. So you didn't have the option to go back and change your name. But the address you did change, you can go back 1 step and change. And I know I'm talking about this a lot, but I just don't want you to be upset that your undo button does not work like it did in Excel. A lot of you really started depending on that undo button. So now I'm going to close this table, and it's automatically saved. I do not need to hit the save button. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to navigate and access form and records. So we're going to navigate through the form. We are going to go now. It says click the tables group in the navigation pane to collapse it. And that depends on how you set it up. If you had tables and related views, or if you had it set up by category, Depending on how this is set up is how you'll access your different tables, your different queries, forms, and reports. It usually tells you how to set this navigation pane when you first start working in the chapter. Now, I've been going back and forth just so you'll understand what this is. This is just navigational purposes that shows you where your information is stored in the database and so you can have access to use it. Now it says to click the tables group, so if you have just the tables, if you have it broken down in categories by tables, queries, forms, then you are collapsing. When it says to collapse, that's just to click the arrow to open or close. Collapse would be close. And I'm going to go in and get my form, and I'm going to open the products form. So here is products, and we've got different forms that are associated with products. So we're going to go in a list of available forms, and we're going to double click the products form. This would be your form, products, and open it up. A form is just simply a pretty way to enter information into a table. Whatever we enter into this product form will automatically be entered in the products table. This is just a way to enter information to make it easier for you. It saves into the table once you input. So this tells us we're going to click next record, last record, previous record, and first record. I want you to go by the navigation on the bottom so you'll find out how to go through and search and to find different things in the records. So this would be your first record. And if you don't remember, just mouse over so you will have a little pop-up box that tells you what it is. This is next record, last record, and new record. We're going to go in and just navigate. You'll see once you click, it'll change to the next record. You're on record 2, and this is exotic liquids, and it just tells you all the information. This is the find command is an ideal way to search for specific records within a table. If you have a huge table with lots of records, it's hard to just go one at a time to look for what information you need to use. So it's much simpler to go in and use the find command. It says click find in the find group on the home tab. So we're on the home tab. The find looks like the binoculars. And then it comes up and asks you what you want to find. We want to find grandma. And that's what we're going to find. Where are we going to find it is our next question. So we find grandma, and we're going to find grandma in the current field or the current document, depending on what you're looking for. And you want to either match any part of the field or the whole field, the start of the field. On this particular one, we're going to click any part of the field. Now I'm going to open this back up. One of the advantages of having this recorded, if there's anything that you don't understand the first time, or if I go too fast, you can always rewind and you can play it again. So if there's anything at all, especially if it's the first time you're working with Access, you may have a little bit of difficulty doing it the first time where you have to go through and set it up again. So now we're going to finish this up where find what grandma, look in, it says current field, match any part of field. So make sure you go through the book and it says click the match arrow, any part of the field, find what box, find next. So you only change what it tells you to change, and now you're searching, and we're going to find next. So grandma's boysenberry spread pops up, and you can see here it's record 6 out of 77. So now that grandma has popped up, it says you should see information about grandma's boysenberry spread, selecting any part of the field. So we are on page 546, letter G, and we're going to close the find dialog box. Now it says click the new blank record on the navigation bar. And we've already talked about at the bottom of the navigation bar, which this is the navigation bar, we're going to click new blank record. Now this is where you get to put the information in on page 546, letter I. The first product name is your name. And I'm just going to put my first name. And the next thing for the supplier, our supplier is Grandma Kelly's Homestead. So you can just put in the GR and your selection should come up for you because you have a drop down box. Next, the category, confections, and the quantity per unit, 1. The unit price, our pie is $25. The units we have in stock are 18. The units on order are 50. And you reorder when you get down to 20. Is it discontinued? No. So you do not click on the checkbox. So now you have another record. It said as soon as you begin typing the product name, as I told you, Michelle's Pecan Pie, but then when you go through supplier, it will give you options. It's easier for you, just make sure you choose the right option. You saw when I was putting in confections, condiments was the first one because alphabetical order that came up. Make sure you choose confections. So now it says click anywhere in the pecan pie record you just entered, and it tells you to print and print preview. Now remember, you can always print preview. Don't waste your effort on printing any of this information because I won't ask for any of the printed sheets. So I'm going to go in, and it tells you on the File tab, and it tells you to print. Next, it tells you print preview. And this is what the information would look like when it's printed. It says click last page and first page, and then the navigation. So I just want you to be aware of what the navigation screens do. Now close the products form, and that form, when you go in, whatever you typed in the form now has been added to the products table. We're going to recognize it says the connection between the table and the form and learn how to delete a record. So we're going to click on the forms group and collapse it if that's the way you have your information showing. On this one, I'm going to go in and it says open the products table. So I've got the products table listed. We're going to click last record, and you'll see now that my information has been added to this table. A form is just simply a more, I'll say, pretty way of entering information. That's all it does. A form is where you go in and you enter, and it automatically goes in the back side into a table. So it says the pecan pie record you entered in the products form is listed as the last record. Now navigate to the fifth record. You can go in fifth record. Let's go to fifth. There you go. And fifth. So you can always click, sorry, you can always click and put in 5 and it'll automatically go to the fifth record. Now it says use the horizontal scroll bar to scroll right until you see the discontinued field. This would be your horizontal scroll. Here would be your vertical scroll. Let me close this out a little bit so you can see my vertical. So on the horizontal, the book tells you to go all the way to where you can see the discontinued field. So it is checked that it's discontinued. Says the check mark, in the discontinued checkbox tells you that this product has been discontinued. You're going to click the row selector box to the left of the fifth record. So your row selector, and now this is selected. Says this row highlights with a gold colored border, and you'll see that. So we're going to go in now and we're going to click delete. So you'll see under the home tab, records delete. So we're going to delete a record. It says the record cannot be deleted or changed because the table order details includes related records. So this particular record isn't associated with another record. You can also see there's a subfolder that goes down and it's a sub record. So since this has associations with other things that are in your database, it cannot be deleted because it will affect other things in your table. So it's not just a single record that's not attached to anything else. So we'll say OK. And we're going to the next. It says navigate to the last record. So I'm going to navigate to the last record. And that's my record. Now I can go in and delete. And you can see because that's a new record, it's never been associated with anything else, then it will let me delete it. Of course, like always, say no. I know that's some steps that frustrate you, but we're just learning what you can and cannot do in Access. So now we're going to go and learn how to compact, repair, and back up the database. This is step 5 on page 548. You're going to click the File tab, and on the File tab, and remember this is called the Backstage view. This is what's happening behind your database. It's not where you do actual work on the database. But you're going to choose the Compact and Repair. And databases tend to get larger as you use them, of course, because you're adding information. So this feature acts as a defragmenter and eliminates wasted space. Before running this feature, close any open objects in the database. So if you have any tables or anything open, you need to do that before. So if you have the invoice, make sure that nothing is open here. Now this will close the tables, reports, queries. This will close the whole database. When it tells you to close something, make sure you use the smaller X to close out this object. And it calls all of this information different objects. So if it tells you to look at your objects, that is what Access considers objects. So now that you've compacted and repaired, so compact and repair, I'm just doing it one more time to make sure you go with me. So once you do that, now you need to go to the file, and it tells you to save and publish. Once you hit save and publish, you're going to go and you're going to set up backup database. The reason you're selecting this, again, if there is a problem, then you can always refer back. It says you just created a backup, so I'm going to save. And now you have a backup. So if you make a mistake, you can go back into that backup. It says keep the database on screen if you plan to continue with hands-on exercise 2, and we are. So that was hands-on exercise 1, and it stopped on page 548. When we continue, it will be on exercise 2.